How's it going, everybody? Back for another sort of special edition of this live stream. Going to try to do something a little bit different today. Today it's not just me rambling about my fantasy team. We've also got Dan Hanna here. He's with me over FaceTime audio, and we're going to talk about sort of just some of the things from the first week. So Dan is one of the few people who tends to beat up on my teams on a regular basis in fantasy. So I'm happy to be able to share his knowledge with everybody here. So Dan, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. I'm really digging the season so far. I mean, the rookies have been pretty impressive, more so than I think we expected. I think a lot of people thought it was of a kind of a lower quality class, but I think we're seeing a lot of interesting talent so far.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I had a tendency this year in drafts to go a little crazy with the rookie class, and have had some awesome performances from some players that I expected those from. Some pleasant surprises and a couple disappointments. Who are the rookies that you're most excited about this year?
Well, right now I'm seeing a lot out of Anthony Edwards, and I know he's the number one pick, but I think a lot of people consider him one of the lower quality number one picks in recent memory. But I'm seeing a lot out of him, a lot of physical strength, a lot of different abilities coming out, and it's happened really quick. He's making an impact already for the Timberwolves. And I'd also say KarlAnthony in Orlando in his limited minutes has looked pretty good managing the team.
Yeah, oh, I agree. And it's so weird about Edwards in particular, like you say, he was the number one pick, but I know for me personally, and I know I wasn't the only one that kind of didn't even really look at him as a number one option in fantasy. I don't necessarily know why that was. I think maybe it had more to do with excitement over some other players than excitement over Edwards. But now to see him playing like a number one pick, and he's looked like great in his first two games. It's sort of a weird, situation. What do you think his role will be, sort of on that team long term with Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell? Where does he fall on the totem pole?
I think he fits in pretty well with both of them. I'm wondering long term if Russell is going to be sort of the second option there next to Towns, or if Edwards can jump in really quickly, maybe as soon as next year. And these are early reactions, but he looks good. He looks like a guy who could take over a game. And it's kind of hard to judge because the Timberwolves, they have Malik Beasley, Jarrett Culver's still trying to, he's only in his second year. He's trying to get his bearings, and he's looking good too. So they have a lot of talent. I don't know how high the ceiling the talent is, but it's sort of a team in flux trying to find its way, and he's part of that.
Yeah, that just makes for the best league pass team. I was checking out on Jarrett Culver earlier today as well. That's a player that we kind of lost steam on in his rookie season. Although there was that one stretch where he looked real nice as a point guard, but then that kind of went to the back burner when they brought in Russell. So the fact that they've got these, four young players, I mean five if you count Beasley, it's just an intriguing young team. So I'm happy to see Anthony Edwards in there, looking real nice, and just curious to see how it all shakes out. But through two games, he's averaged like 16.5 points. He had a 15-point game and an 18-point game, and he's playing less than 24 minutes, so he's not even playing half the game. He's just scoring. He looks comfortable scoring. Like there was that clip of him going up against like Rudy Gobert. That was going around on Twitter last night. It's just nice to see him so comfortable out there. He's still 19 years old, so like you said, they're early reactions, but early reactions are the best reactions. And I wonder if I'm going to be eating my words on Anthony Edwards a little bit this season. But
I think that's the case. I think that happens a lot when the season's just starting. You get excited and you get down on rookies, but then even it takes years for some of these guys to find their footing. So early excitement's okay. Just got to remember, you just never know what's going to happen, how they're going to flow with their own team. Everyone's in their own situation.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And how many of the best players in the league were like amazing straight out of the gates? There's so many players that sort of define fantasy that kind of had sort of forgettable like rookie years, that you wouldn't really think twice about. So
Yeah.
what the
There's a couple rookies right now who I'd say statistically they're not blowing anyone out of the water, but if you're watching them play, they look like they're going to be really good all-around two-way players, and that's Isaac Okoro and Patrick Williams with Chicago. I think both of them have shown that they have the potential to really get a hold of their teams pretty soon, but they definitely have a lot of development to do.
Right. Carl looked real nice in preseason, and he's got that two-way player, right? That's
yeah, he's really more of a defensive guy right now.
Yeah.
He always struggled with his shot in college, but he's so young that if he can develop a shot, defensively he looks like a guy who's always going to be there in the NBA.
Yeah, oh for sure, and that can come, with its drawbacks in fantasy at least in per minute leagues, because he's too good. The coach doesn't want to take him off the floor, but if he's not putting points on the board, and his boxing day stat line, played 42 minutes. I don't know if you saw this, but he played 42 minutes yesterday.
I saw.
Put up a goose egg in the point department. But if you're getting 42 minutes when you're 19 years old, then you must be doing something right.
It's hard to believe you can play that many minutes and not score, but I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, it's hard to believe, but it's not necessarily something to look at as a huge negative for such a young player on a bad team. Also,
right.
We don't know what's happening there.
Right.
So.
And you mentioned Patrick Williams. You're a Bulls guy. What do you think about Patrick Williams so far?
I'm a Bulls guy. What really impresses me, and I try not to be, see red. I try not to see red too much, but he looks like a guy who's really under control. He's really, every play he makes, and he's making mistakes, of course, he's young, but he looks like he's in control.
Right.
And that's hard it's not something you see from young guys. He just looks like the game is not, he's trying to figure out the speed of the game, but he's not playing too fast. He's playing within the flow of the game on offense and defense.
Right.
And that's something that I think it's a quality that you look for in guys who are really going to take a leap maybe a year or two down the line.
Right. And what do you think his ceiling is?
Oh, well, I'm biased. I'm going to try and keep it down, but he's sort of the guy who I think in 3 or 4 years become an all-star.
Right.
So I would say I don't think. I'm not the one who's made this connection, but I've seen some Bulls fans say that he has a young Kawhi Leonard in him. I don't want to jump too heavy on that bandwagon, but
right.
he definitely is under control in a similar way to Kawhi.
Okay, I like that. With those sort of malleable young athletes, really the sky's the limit, and we've seen it, turn great, and we've seen it turn not so great. But it's just fun to be excited about it, especially when it's your team that lands that sort of mystery talent.
Exactly. Now's the time. Now's the time to be excited, because if he turns out to be a bust in a year, I still have the memory of thinking he could be Kawhi Leonard one day.
Exactly. And I mean, you're a Bulls guy. I'm a Pistons guy. I went through this, and I'm still going through this with Sekou Doumbouya, trying to figure out what his ceiling is. It's easy to get excited about a player like that, but like you said, I mean, a couple years from now, we might be looking at. I don't want to slam anybody on here, but the players that have fallen into this archetype in the past and just haven't ended up, living up to that. The one rookie who as fascinated by him now as I've ever been, and he's the guy that I kind of took first. There's sort of two players that I took first in rookie drafts this year. LaMelo Ball. I put a post up just on Slam this morning, a quote from Hornets coach James Borrego talking about how he might be able to find LaMelo some more minutes. The Hornets have somewhat of a crowded rotation, which is sort of weird to say because they're not particularly great, but there's just
really weird, yeah.
There's just a couple of intriguing perimeter players, and there's only so many minutes to go around. But LaMelo has played 15 minutes each in both of his first 2 games. One game he put up a goose egg, but last night he got 13 points in 15 minutes.
Didn't he not? He didn't have. Did he have any assists in that second game? I can't recall.
Just one assist. Just one assist. He only played 6 minutes in the second half. And Rick Bonnell of the Charlotte Observer was talking about how he struggled defensively, and he thinks, and Bonnell thinks, that's why Ball didn't end up playing more. But if you're the Hornets, you've got a lot of players to think about, like Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier. You got to figure out a way to make Gordon Hayward's contract palatable, and there's only so many minutes to go around. But I'm as excited.
That's kind of like the lost money fallacy, though. You know, you spent it on Hayward; he's going to be there.
Right.
I think the coaches are definitely going to play him, and he could definitely take stats away. But I think he can help the development of the younger players better because they have more talent around him. So it's worth it to bring him in.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. So he's kind of like his brother in the sense that it kind of amazes you how a player can be kind of so good at so many different parts of basketball, but will then score 0 points or 4 points. He scored 0 in his first preseason game. He scored 0 in his first regular season game. And I'm not saying this to slam the guy. I'm saying it because he turns around and then has a great game. And all the while, the highlights are amazing. He's one of my league pass alert players of the year for sure. I just love watching him play. I haven't seen this much like Charlotte Hornets basketball in a long time. So
that's true. That is one thing he's doing, is making the Charlotte Hornets visible. No doubt about that.
Yeah. The rookie that I am absolutely, I think, most excited about in terms of his potential, but also his short term, is James Wiseman.
Absolutely. Fantasy pickup right there.
Yeah. I didn't expect him to be this good so early.
Well, with Marquise Chris breaking his leg.
Yes.
Today, so coming out.
Yep.
James Wiseman is going to play a lot of minutes. Because who else do the Warriors have? Kevin, Looney. They have Pascal. That's as a power forward. That's really all they got.
Right.
So I think Wiseman's going to be really thrown into the fire.
Right. Yeah, and he put up 19 points in his first game, 18 points in his second game, and he's doing this in less than 25 minutes. He didn't play preseason. He only played 3 college games. Like he hasn't. And the last of those games came in November or maybe December 2019.
Yeah. And if you're watching him play, like I was watching the Brooklyn Nets Warriors that first game, and he looked really rusty. He still scored nearly 20 points, but he looked at times like, man, this guy has a lot of work to do. But that he hasn't played a lot. He just hasn't.
Right.
So it's going to take some time for him, maybe more than others, but he will still be a fantasy asset already, just statistically.
There was a quote that just killed me. I read it earlier today from Draymond Green about James Wiseman. I'm just trying to pull it up right now. Draymond Green is going to make a great commentator one day, but for now he's the most quotable player in the NBA. This is a quote according to Drew Schiller of NBC Sports. Draymond Green on James Wiseman. The fun part is he don't have a blank clue about what he's actually doing. He don't even know the basics. That is exciting because he's going to learn those basics. But to see what he's able to do not having a clue is very exciting. And I love that because it's true. Like if he's this good and he's sort of kind of just been thrown into the deep end to figure it out, the sky's the limit for him there. But
I haven't heard that quote, and that pretty much matches what I just said about watching him in the first game.
Right.
He just looked confused out there, making some mistakes and still putting up numbers, still showing that he has talent, raw talent. And it's definitely going to be an exciting guy to watch this season.
Right. Now, are there any other rookies? Those are the rookies that were at the top of my list of players to watch this year. There is one player that we haven't talked about. Hasn't really done a whole lot to sort of justify that conversation yet, but he's An international player, 19 years old, playing the hardest position there is to learn in the NBA. Killian Hayes, at what point do you start to expect a bit more than what we've seen out of Killian Hayes?
Man, Killian Hayes is in a tough spot. I know you're a Pistons guy, but that team is a disaster in my opinion.
Yep.
You know, it's hard for a young guy like Killian Hayes. And it's not like the players on the Pistons are bad. They've signed good players, but they aren't great players. And I don't even know if they played well together.
Right.
So it's going to be really hard for Killian Hayes to come in there. I mean, he has Derrick Rose, who's awesome. He has Delon Wright, who's had some good seasons, and it's just a really deep team of sort of middling talent, and it's going to be hard for them to overcome the veterans in minutes. I think, at least for the first half of the season.
Yeah. Dwayne Casey named him the starter, but he's only played like 20 minutes per game. You know,
right.
So he's
not. I don't see that going. I don't see that going up. I don't see it.
Yeah, you know, all the credit to any player learning how to play point guard in the NBA. It's not easy, and being sort of rough in year one isn't. I'm not throwing up any red flags about Killian Hayes, but the field goal percentages leave much to be desired. 1 for 7 last night. He was 3 for 6 in the opener, which was his high watermark. The preseason numbers, you know. He's just not hitting his shots, and that won't last forever. He'll get a feel for, you know, putting the ball in the net in the NBA, but it's hard to justify, you know, kind of stealing minutes from Derrick Rose, like you said, even DeLon Wright, if that's not really happening for you. But I'm just so excited to see Hayes and Doumbouya sort of develop together. They both played. I don't know if they played as teammates, but they both grew up on like the French amateur scene. As kids, so to see them together in Detroit is kind of fun. But
yeah, I like Doumbouya too. You know, it's just I think he only played 8 minutes last game.
Right.
I don't know. It's just another case of with Jeremy Grant, Blake Griffin, Mason Plumlee. You know, that's a lot of veteran minutes, and as excited as Doumbouya's had some exciting games. Not many, but last year he had some exciting games near the end before COVID stopped the season.
Right.
And he showed like that raw burst of what makes things exciting. And I don't know. We'll see if he can get some more minutes later.
Yeah.
He's one of a bunch of second-year players. That's another conversation. One of a bunch of second-year players who are showing some improvement or maybe deserve some minutes to get that chance to show improvement.
Yeah, I agree. In a lot of ways, like Doumbouya still feels like a rookie. I don't know if that a lot of players from, you know, that whole class still feel like rookies. I don't know if it's just because of the premature way the season ended. But Doumbouya, he's just 20 years old, and this is rounded up. I don't even know if he's had his birthday yet. He might still be 19 and change. Yeah. So I mean, it's exciting. It's just exciting. Obi Toppin, another rookie that I thought could make a sort of nice impact out of the gates. And he kind of did in preseason, although that sort of petered off towards the end. Now he's hurt and could be out until early January. A calf injury for him. But I think he can be, value pretty early on this year, assuming, health isn't going to be a lingering issue. How do you feel about the 22-year-old young buck?
It's Tom Thibodeau's hasn't. I guess with the Timberwolves he played younger guys, but back when he coached the Bulls,
right,
he was known for not liking playing young guys. Obi Toppin is not the youngest,
right,
but I think maybe it's going to take until the end of the season for him to get some big minutes and to really show what he can do.
Right.
It's the Knicks. That's another team. It's just a weird team.
Yeah.
How are these rookies supposed to, make a name for themselves or really get into it when the teams are so in flux and you're not sure what's going on?
Right.
It can be hard.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's a hard team to be a young player on. RJ Barrett, obviously a sophomore, but looked amazing in opening night.
Right.
Didn't look so amazing in the follow-up.
No.
I heard a lot of these are the reactions I sort of felt. I felt a lot of people after that opening game were sort of really like yelling at people on Twitter for having judged RJ Barrett prematurely.
Right.
But I haven't heard that crowd since the follow-up game. I love RJ. I'll always support any sort of Canadian player. We don't have the best track record of Canadian players getting drafted high in the lottery. After Anthony Bennett, and then of course Andrew Wiggins, now RJ Barrett sort of left at least some to be desired. Again, he's 20 years old. We're not writing anybody off when they're 20 years old. But you just want to see, when you see 10 points in 37 minutes, you start to, get a little, I don't know, shivery, squeamish, I guess. But, I think that's one player. Like, it's either going to happen this year. Like, what we found with Wiggins is it never really started to happen. And then it kind of started to happen in, like, year 4 for him, where he kind of went from being that volume 20-point-per-game guy. He started to creep to 25. But then the Jimmy Butler era began, and that sort of changed the timeline of everything. So I'm really very curious to see what sort of leap Barrett makes this year. We've seen a good game, and we've seen a not-so-good game. So what are we going to see next?
Yeah, well, he's a guy. I mean, he's playing big minutes, so Thibodeau's clearly going to play in big minutes.
Right.
He's the guy. He's the guy the Knicks they're kind of counting on him to take a leap, and there's no reason he can't. I mean, we don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. But he's definitely shown some flashes in his second year here, so we'll see if he can take those next steps. We'll see.
Oh, for sure. I'm jumping back to rookies. I won't keep you forever, but jumping back to rookies, one of the things we heard a lot. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to interrupt this rookie chat to investigate something with this Mavericks-Clippers game, because this cannot be right. I'm wondering if I'm getting bad data from our stat provider.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna, even before I say it on the stream, I'm going to check it out.
That can't be right.
That can't.
No way.
Are you looking at it too?
No, I'm gonna go switch to a different score.
Oh my God! It's at NBA.com, which I guess we both use Sport Radar. It's on my TV. I guess I can watch it. Okay, so I thought it was just a bug.
It's on ESPN too. It's got to be right.
I thought this was a Sports.ws bug. Whenever you see the score, but I'm looking at a game at halftime that's 77-27. What do you even do when you're down 50 points? Is this a record? This has to be a record.
This is an ugly score. There's something about this that's even uglier than the 50-point differential. I don't know. The fact that it's the Clippers, that they're down 50?
Oh my!
I want to interrupt this whole chat right now and just talk about how little I expect from the Los Angeles Clippers this year. And that was before this.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just saying. Doc Rivers wasn't the problem, everybody. That's just
honestly. Oh my goodness. This is so. This is like a dynasty ending loss. I don't want to overreact, but if somebody told me that this was the game where they decided to sort of blow it up, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm in shock. Let's talk about the Mavs getting 77 points in the first half. Listen to this from Doncic. He's played 16 minutes, 18 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, and a steal. That's not bad, to get 35 fantasy points. This is sort of the hardcore format in 16 minutes of action.
Yeah.
But
he's a star. He's a star. He's not only a star. I think he has a chance to be the best player in the NBA this year. We'll see.
Yes.
But this is nasty. I just can't get over looking at the score. I just keep looking at it.
Yeah.
77-27, guys. That's not the Bulls. That's not the Chicago Bulls losing to the Mavericks. That's the Los Angeles Clippers.
As good as the Mavs have been, the Clippers have been that bad. Paul George is leading the way. with
And Montrezl
13.
Montrez is laughing right now. He's probably looking at this box score. He's probably laughing.
Yeah, he kind of did all right for himself. Took maybe a bit of a pay cut, but maybe. Oh my gosh! I mean, you never know what these guys are seeing on the inside.
Right.
In terms of the kind of chemistry in the locker room, that I know that came up constantly last year.
It looks like Kawhi isn't playing.
Kawhi is not playing; he's resting.
So, he's resting. Wait a minute.
Why
is he resting?
That's a very good question. Maybe he knew this was
He's
coming.
resting Game 3.
I don't know why. I haven't read into it. I thought it was just sort of a standard load management type thing.
Is it the elbow to the jaw? I forgot about the elbow to the jaw. The stitches. 8 stitches.
Oh, okay.
Was that 2 days ago, or it must have been 2 days ago? So he's out because of that. Okay, we don't want to bash Kawhi here.
Right.
For load management already when he was actually injured. So.
Yes, yeah, fair enough. Good call. So maybe the Clips would be a little bit better than 27 points in the first half if
that's still not. And they still have Paul George, who they just gave $45 million a year to.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, it's just embarrassing.
Oh my gosh.
All right, well.
So you sent me a text the other night talking about how heavy the team was leaning on Nick Batum.
Right. What is going on? Listen, Nick Batum, NBA veteran. I like the guy. Had some good years. He's 30. He's almost 33, I think. And he's just not a guy the Clippers should be playing 30-plus minutes a game and starting. I don't see it. I don't get that strategy.
Yeah.
He's just not at that place in his career now. And it's just not, I just don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Batum is a weird case. I agree. He hasn't played
minutes today for Batum. 0 points, 1 rebound, 2 fouls, 1 turnover.
Not much.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of that from him.
Right.
And it's not to criticize him. He's just not in the place to. It's on the Clippers, not Batum.
Yeah, and he's playing like meaningful basketball for the first time in 2 years, but he hasn't really been like healthy, and I'd say in like 4 years, right? His first year in Charlotte, he did all right. Or sorry, his second year in Charlotte, he put up 15 points, 6 boards, 6 assists. That's a pretty typical Batum stat line that we grew accustomed to in Portland. He was real nice in Portland. He was a nice glue guy on some really kind of exciting Blazers teams. But that player has not been available to basketball fans for 4 years for injury reasons. It's not Batum's fault. But now it kind of seems like the Clippers are just sort of throwing him out there, hoping they're getting Blazers era Batum. He did put up a double-double on Christmas. But
sure. I mean, he's still. I mean, if you're playing big minutes, he's the guy who can do that.
Yeah, and if you wanted a 36-minute, 13-point effort, 10 boards, there you go. My gosh, I'm still in disbelief about this. This sort of railroaded our rookie conversation, but
we should probably just finish up the rookie conversation at least.
Yeah, let's just do that so we can sort of let this sort of develop. Like, what do you even do in the second half? And we'll find out soon enough. It's about to start. The Mavs, for those who don't have a game in front of them, are doing this in their sort of throwback early to mid-'90s green jerseys.
Yeah, I like it.
What are those, like the Jim Jackson jerseys? What do you even call those?
Jason Kidd's first year? I don't know.
Yeah, they're I thought I would like them. I'd rather see them bring back the blue versions of those.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I never really thought about this until my wife brought it up. They just look like Celtics jerseys. Like unless you're sitting right in front of the TV, like, oh, who are the Celtics playing? And I think that takes away a lot of the, the wow factor of bringing a jersey like that back. But
they'll be gone next year, so don't worry about the NBA jersey cycle.
It's hard to keep up with all the jerseys. I realize it makes me sound like an old man I kind of like, when you're young, like a New Jersey is just the coolest thing. But when we were young and New Jersey didn't happen, you didn't add like 2 New Jerseys every year.
Yeah,
You
and
added,
I do like. Before we get into a huge jersey conversation, I would say I do like a lot of the New Jerseys.
right.
There's just too many, too often for too many teams
Yeah.
nonstop.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with them. And as soon as you get a jersey that you love, like there's a chance it'll be replaced the following year. So yeah, that's an episode in itself that we'll have to revisit. Just to break this up just a little bit, if anybody's watching the stream, I don't even have the numbers up. But this is something that I'll be doing on a semi-regular basis, sort of streaming, going through the motions of looking at my own team, setting my own lineups, and making sense of the box scores from like the night before or the day of. But in the future, we do intend to sort of push out some more refined, edited content where we can, provide sort of tutorial resources for new users, and also just put out some general fantasy content. I honestly think that some of the Sports.ws community has some of the best fantasy GMs that are out there. And I'm not just saying that. I realize I'm biased, but I'm not just saying that. So I want to really fill the void that's out there in terms of fantasy content. So that's one thing we've got planned. So if you're watching this right now, hit subscribe on YouTube as we sort of roll out these more ambitious plans. And in the meantime, hit us with any questions you have about anything from the site itself to your league, generic fantasy questions. Heck, we'll even be trade arbiters if there's a league-wide debate over whether a trade should be vetoed or not. Bring it to us.
Great. Yeah.
We will rule on it. Dan will rule on it.
I will rule on it. No doubt about it.
I love it. We take pride in that. 2 more rookies that I wanted to touch on before we hop off. Tyrese Halliburton.
Okay.
He was he dropped on draft day, but he didn't really drop in fantasy drafts. People kind of adjusted for that in their fantasy drafts, so he ended up his ADP is at like 129. He's owned in 63% of leagues, and he's looked okay in preseason and in the first 2 games. Well, not so great in game 2, but what do you think about his future in general? His future with the Kings?
I would say he's a guy. When he's on the King, so he's going to get a chance. But this year, it's going to be really hard to judge him. I think he's not going to develop. We're not going to know what he is this year.
Right.
I just don't see that. I don't think him dropping in the draft really means anything. How many good players have dropped in the draft?
Right.
But it's hard to see him doing too much with the Kings. He's not going to have the ball in his hand a lot because of De'Aaron Fox.
Right.
And Fox isn't going anywhere.
Right.
Fox is great. He's going nowhere. So then you're kind of looking at a secondary ball handling role, off the ball shooting guard role, and a 2-point guard lineup perhaps.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think he's that exciting. Like statistically, he's not going to be a guy who's someone to look at this year, but he could develop into something more. There's no doubt about it.
Right. I think you nailed it. He's only 6'5", so yeah. He's if anything, he's like a 1/2. Like I don't think you would consider him a 2/3. He's
got decent length though. He's got decent length.
True. This is De'Aaron Fox's team. The Kings just extended De'Aaron Fox. They love him, and De'Aaron Fox likes it there. So, but they've got Buddy Hield in the mix too. No longer have Bogdanovich in the mix. But it kind of seems like they're okay building their backcourt of the future, based off of Fox and Halliburton. But, like you said, when you're playing off the ball, that sort of limits what you could do statistically. I think I'm not saying this could be a possible ceiling for them, but just think about the Blazers with Lillard and McCollum. Like Lillard will fill the stat sheet, and McCollum has turned into a great scorer. But when the team is set up that way, it's tough to have 2 amazing fantasy assets, I guess.
Yeah.
So I really don't know. And I mean, maybe Halliburton. Maybe I'm not being fair to Halliburton. I'm high on Halliburton. I drafted him in several leagues.
You are. You are. I've heard you talk about it.
But when you sort of look at the reality of everything, maybe I can see reason for doubt. And one of the biggest reasons is the team that drafted him. And I don't know if that's fair or not, but does just the mere notion of being drafted by the Kings hurt a player's value in your eyes?
Probably. I hate to say it, but there's no possible evidence to suggest otherwise
Right.
at this point. So,
Yeah. I mean, they just had the regime change, right? They just switched around. Like Divac's out of the picture now.
Yeah.
What is it?
They put so much faith in him.
Right.
To start, man. Well, I don't want to get into a Kings podcast here, but
yeah, that's true. So yeah, we'll see with Halliburton. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a new era for Kings fans after a disappointing, 2 decades. The Kings had that year where they almost made the playoffs. It was like 2 or 3 years ago now. Might have been 2 seasons ago, and that team was kind of fun. The Kings were half decent. I think they ended up in the 9th or 10th seed, and they were in the playoff conversation until the final week of the year. And I honestly feel like, is that the best thing that has happened to the Kings in 2 decades, maybe a decade and a half? It's very depressing.
I mean, if Marvin Bagley was able to, get back. He's kind of not showing much right now, but he hasn't played much. He's still got a lot of potential. It's the best way to describe the Kings.
Fair enough. Honestly, yeah, very well put. Moving on from the Kings, for the sake of everyone involved, let's talk about Devin Vassell. Do you say Vassell?
Yes.
Like Cassell? Sam Cassell?
I say Vassell, but it's probably Vassell. I don't know.
I gotta tune into some of the Spurs broadcasts to get my pronunciation right. I kind of just say both every time I mention his name. He's looked nice in preseason.
Looks really nice, really nice. He's skinny. He's got a small frame, I would say.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely is. One of several players on the Spurs that are just intriguing from a fantasy perspective. They're just loaded with players like that now.
Spurs look really good with young guys, no doubt about it. And they've kind of been. I feel like the Spurs have been forgotten. I think the Vegas had their, not to get into gambling, but Vegas had their over under on wins this year at like around 30, I think.
Oh wow!
I don't know. I know they struggled last year, but I didn't see that. I like a lot of their young guys.
Right. Yeah, they're so intriguing. It's just kind of, will they or won't they go full rebuild? And chances are maybe they just seamlessly transition into their next era, as they've done in the past.
They've done it before.
But, I mean, between Vassell, Calvin Johnson, Lonnie Walker, of course, DeJounte Murray, it just blows my mind. It's just such a well-run organization, how they can keep pumping out these players that are not only good from a fantasy perspective, but they're actual, legitimate, impact players in real life. A credit to them.
Almost every one of these young big picks that they don't have top picks. They're always middle first round picks, right?
Right.
And they always, they all look good. Not all, but you know what I mean. They
Yeah.
look good.
Yeah, they do. So I'm excited to see what this kid has in store. Regular season.
I want to mention one more rookie too, by the way.
Okay.
I don't know if we're going to be wrapping up soon or not, but I just want to mention Alexei Poco. So just
buddy.
For at least a minute.
Let's do it. Tell me, you're high on him. I know you're high on him. Preach.
This guy, he is the definition of a unicorn. The word unicorn became really overused around Porzingis time.
Right.
Pokusevski looks like a point guard version of Porzingis. I don't even know. You can't even describe this guy. He's so skinny. There's no way he's physically ready for the NBA.
Right.
But if you watch, I watched him in the preseason twice because they played the Bulls twice, and I like to subject myself to things like that. And Pokusevski, I was calling Poke. Poke looked like he could hang despite his super small frame. Once he builds a little bit of frame, adds weight, he has the tools to become a really good player. I think he's an exciting rookie. He won't be good this year statistically,
Right.
But he's gonna be long term. I think he could be one of the best rookies in this class. So I didn't want to leave him out of the conversation.
Yeah, of course. Wow. Yeah, that's high praise. But you're not the only one that I've heard who's got these sort of grand visions for what he could be, and that's a testament to him. He had some nice preseason games. This is his game log from preseason: 14-8 in 22 minutes, 7-7 in 23 minutes, 12-13 in 25 minutes. So if that's what you can do when you're a razor thin 19-year-old, getting your first taste of NBA action, that's pretty impressive. He did not score in his debut yesterday, but he played 11 minutes, got a block and a steal.
I agree with you. Much, especially early in the regular season from him.
Right. Yeah, but long term, yeah, the just completely intriguing, mysterious ceiling is there for Poku. I wouldn't invest in him in any redraft leagues, but in a dynasty league, he's definitely a good player to have. And you probably got him late, although that ADP, his ADP is sitting at 150, so that's not like super late, especially given how many deep leagues we have. But people are just excited about him, so we'll see how that pans out. The Thunder will be an interesting choice. They've got all these players that could just all blossom. Like if the team wants to go full rebuild, full development mode.
I want to do. Yeah, I'd love to do like a Thunder discussion. Honestly, I think they're doing great with this quick shift to a rebuild here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's obviously Shea. He hit a game winner in his first game as the man in OKC. But then Bazley looked real nice in that.
Who I'm super high on, as you know. So.
Yes, yeah, for sure. He had a double-double yesterday, 15 and 10, with 2 blocks and a steal. I'll take that for sure. For the former intern at Under Armour, right? Yeah, the Under Armour intern.
Yeah.
That's probably the highest stat line a former Under Armour intern has ever done, in an opening game before.
I would say that's definitely an accurate statement.
But the year is going to be such a great opportunity for the Thunder. Mind you, we thought this was going to be the case last year, but then they just were great with Chris Paul. But this is the year where they can really sort of start, seeing what their young players can do when given sort of a full opportunity. So it's nice to see Bazley. It's nice to see Shea. And then to have Poku developing in the wings. Lugie Dort, of course, another young player who I'm pretty high on. Not so much from a fantasy perspective, but certainly from an actual NBA impact perspective. They're in a good spot, So
yeah, I think the Thunder and the Spurs are examples of how to rebuild, and you don't need to tank. And I'm not saying tanking doesn't always work, but how often does it work? Compared to how many teams have tanked. I think that's a whole other discussion.
Right.
And it affects a lot of players from a fantasy perspective too.
Right.
You have a lot of bad players on bad teams putting up big stats.
Right.
But the Spurs and the Thunder have a lot of good potential on teams that are sort of middling, but they could become good really quickly.
Right. And I wonder if that's just a small market thing. Do these franchises just not survive if they are not good enough to do this? Maybe that's like a downside of being in a big market where you never really have to worry about attendance. You never really have to worry about relocation. So those teams will maybe be more likely to just tank because they can't get
I
away with it.
hear ya.
But
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah.
what the Spurs have done as an organization, what like Sam Presti and the Thunder have done as an organization is just awesome to see. It's fun to see. And now they've got like about 89 first round picks over the next couple seasons to add to
Yeah.
this. But, well, Dan, I appreciate you hopping on today. I won't keep you.
No problem.
Thanks for going over the rookies with me. We'll have to do this again. Kind of go through other surprises from the first, chunk of the season. A quick update before you go. 80 points. It's 80 to 39 right now. So the Clippers are catching up. They're only down 41. So that's oh my gosh. All right. Well, yeah, I appreciate you. We'll talk soon, and
Awesome.
and I'll say goodbye to you here, and then I'll close up the stream.
All right, catch you later.
All right, see you, buddy. All right, Dan's great. He knows everything there is to know about fantasy. Just before I shut everything down, just before I shut everything down, there's one thing I wanted to say. I've got the new numbers for the contracts from Keith Smith, who is great. You should follow him on Twitter. It's just Keith Smith NBA. I do a lot of work with Keith through Slam, through Sports.ws, and he's a go-to contract guy. And we've got his most recent numbers. Nothing really crazy has changed financially for most teams, but here's what has changed. About half a dozen players have contract extensions. Nothing that starts this season starts next season, but those long-term numbers will be updated. And a lot of players that sort of went from like non-guaranteed deals, then got waived and signed two-way deals, and vice versa. Those sort of moves will now be taken into account. So expect that to be pushed, later on today. So for any salary leagues that, really require commissioners to be sort of paying attention to that bottom line constantly, you'll have up to the minute updated contracts as of today, later this afternoon. So thanks for tuning in for this. Definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. I want to do more of this. I find this is a bit more, it feels like a bit more natural than just me sort of rambling away about my own teams. It's nice to be able to bring in another perspective, especially one as sort of knowledgeable as Dan's. So I'd like to do more stuff like this in the future. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we do intend to release kind of more edited weekly fantasy guides and previews and whatnot. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the games today. RIP to the Clippers. It's now 86 to 45. I'm gonna go see what happens here. And if you have any questions about anything, just hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Discord, and we'll get to them. All right. Thanks, guys.